IAPC&M. So indeed, it is now past. So hello everyone, and welcome to today's series of IAPC&M Special CPD Building Masterclass on World Mental Health and Wellbeing Awareness Day, a very important topic, in particular nowadays. My name is Julie Kennedy, and I'm your host. Now, if you did not attend our first session this morning with Ruby, who took us through the wonderful world of Zentangle, I suggest you catch the replay. And let us move on to our second speaker today. So before I introduce the wonderful Teresa, I would like to remind you, as shared on our social media yesterday, that Dawn and Teresa are available all day on the other Zoom link for all of you, whether you're a member or not a member. They are available for anyone needing a quiet, safe space in order to have a chat over a cup of tea. Maybe you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or anxious about anything, so don't hesitate to go on over into that Zoom link as well. But first, we have a wonderful session with us with Teresa Mack on the topic of self-care without guilt. Now, this is much needed. So welcome, Teresa. Before we get into our topic, some housekeeping. The call is a maximum of 1 hour, and that will include 15 minutes Q&A. One suggestion might be to put your questions, in the chat, and then we will take them at the end of the 45 minutes. Unless, of course, you have a burning question, something you want to do, then just raise your hand or wave at me, and we will take it there and then. And there will be maybe an interactive part, in which case feel free to unmute yourself. So I hope you have your CPD pad and pen ready for our second session today. I certainly find that this is a wonderful topic, in particular, maybe, sorry, David, for women, because we do have a tendency to always put others first. So Teresa, over to you about self-care without guilt.
Thank you very much. So before I change to my PowerPoint presentation, and there won't be too many words, it will still be explaining and asking a question. I just want to share a bit like why I have decided to do this talk, and I've done it a few times now. So I'm disabled and chronically ill, and I believe that what prompted this a few years ago was not only a delayed trauma response, but not being able to say no and pushing myself harder than I needed to. And I'm 55 now. I am encouraging my children not to do this to themselves. And I meet a lot of, especially, I appreciate that you're here, David, but I meet mostly women who it's supported by society in general that we just work more hours in the household, or we feel guilty, we feel unable to switch off and delegate. And that has various reasons. So this webinar is supposed to walk you through a mixture between exploring a little bit, where is this actually coming from? What are these reasons? And then what can we do about this? And at the end, there will be a link to my website. I have a special resource page for this topic, so you can go on there then and explore that a little bit further. So I hope this talk will just prompt you to, give yourself permission to rethink how is your relationship with self-care. And for me, it's not just, it's a nice topic and maybe we should explore it, but it had serious mental and physical health consequences for myself. So it's not something like other topics we can just lightly talk about it and do it or not do it, but it might even be able to save your life. So for me, it's quite serious. It's quite personal. So thank you for coming. Thank you for the people here to support me, and let's start. So right, can you see the slide? Yeah. So this is what we will cover. Can you see that it's changed now? Yeah, because I'm just gonna make you all a bit small. Thank you. So this was in the announcement. We will cover reframing guilt. So understanding, is there maybe something else we can do than just feeling guilty? Bit about the inner critic, and then really practical ideas about self-care. Right. So I started with the inner critic because I think that's probably the biggest culprit that causes us to feel guilty. And I would like to ask you, in a minute, I'm going to ask you, you can unmute or you can put it in the chat, but who is speaking? So for me, unfortunately, it was mostly my parents. And the reason for this is because they were very harshly treated and they didn't learn how to parent and they didn't know any better. So in a way, they did the best with the tools they had. And unfortunately, their tools were really rubbish. Teachers as well. Oh my God, I'm a mixed media artist. And you know what? My art teacher didn't like me. I don't think she would have ever believed that I would do anything creative. So my question is, who else? So please put in the chat, and I can't see the chat in this mode, but please put in the chat or unmute yourself and tell me who is the voice in your head. Oh, we can see the chat now.
I can read them out to you otherwise if they come. I mean, I've just written parents and also society.
So tell me about society. What in society is the inner critic for you?
Well, I think just the fact you've got to be absolutely everything as a woman. You have to be a wonderful mother and a wonderful lover, and you have to be sporty, and you have to be fit, and you have to be bright, and you have to be helping other people. And yes, a lot of feelings of have to.
Mm.
I see this written family members, definitely me. I think it is myself, but in the voice of my parents and teachers. Female relations, one has written as well.
Mm. Well, David, you said definitely me, but I'm a bit interested in what is the origin of that inner critical voice, because yeah, it's all us now. My parents, they're in Germany and they're old and they don't see what I do. But I remember I went to an event in London. It wasn't expensive. It was one of these 3 days, coaching events. And seriously, my parents in Germany, but they were sitting right next to me. My dad on one side, like, you paid money for this. And my mum, what are you wasting your time with? And seriously, I had to say to them in my mind, I bought one ticket. You out. And that this is actually a really good way, and I will tell you a bit more about that in a minute, to imagine that inner critical voice. So I call mine the marshmallow man. So although I pictured my parents and I sent them out, a few years after then, so maybe a couple of years, I decided to start improving my drawing. Got my pad out, got my pencil out. Oh, it was there. Well, that looks shit. And I'm like, what? I wasn't even prepared for this sinister voice. So I don't know if you've watched Ghostbusters or, I think it was this tire advert with the Marshmallow Man. And I just pictured this Marshmallow Man with very short arms. And I'm like, where's your drawing? And then I dared it. I said, I can even draw with my left hand, and it's better than what you're doing. And I drew with my left hand. And every time that persona came, I was just like, can you go and play in the garden, please? I'm busy. And seriously, it might sound funny and not effective, but I don't even have that critical voice anymore. So I have a Facebook group, and it's the 100-day art challenge, because I want to be able to draw for 100 days. I've not managed it. I got ill and then I started again and things like that. But the other day I was drawing and I thought, there is no voice. And I realized that art is art. There's this taped banana that was sold for 130,000 pounds or so. So I just duct taped a banana on a wall, and it's like art. And I felt a bit sad in that moment, because I thought, how did I ever allow myself and other people to criticize me? Art. Art is art. Kids make art. So another thing we do, we put disclaimers on. Are you a person who apologizes more than you need to. For example, I'm in a conversation with someone and all of a sudden they say, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm talking too much or so. So we say sorry a lot. Or the other thing is, before someone shares something with me, they go, I know this sounds silly. But it's actually not silly what they're telling me, because I think, well, you're mentioning it because it's important to you. So why do we put these disclaimers on? Maybe because of this. Before you laugh at me, I make sure I said it first. So I say, oh, I know it's really stupid, but, and it's in a way the brain trying to control the situation so that you don't have any ammunition to criticize me then anymore. If I just say, right, I believe this or so, and then you say, oh, that's stupid, that might hurt me. But if I say, oh, I know it's stupid, but I read this, then I'm controlling the situation. And anything I share is not to criticize you. I really want to encourage you to observe yourself. And I'm not saying stop saying sorry or stop making this, not at all. It's just like we do a lot of things very automatically and then we burn out because we lost the off button. So all these things are to make you aware what is actually a choice and what do I actually just do automatically. So you probably have heard you can't pour from an empty cup. Oh no, it's the wrong thing. Sorry. It's sorry. See, I'm saying sorry now. I have my things muddled up. Okay, we're going into guilt and shame. Right. Did you know guilt is not really a feeling? So we are found guilty in a court of law, sometimes even for things you didn't realize, and like you parked somewhere and you got a fine and went to your old address and all of a sudden you get a court summons. And we feel guilty, but it might not be the real emotion. So why do we actually feel guilty and shame? So I got a really good example from my trauma training, and you're in the kitchen and you've got a child with you, maybe a toddler, 3-4 years old, and you're cooking, and then you go, oh, forgot the potatoes. So you go to the other side of the room and the child is reaching for the hot stove and you go, no! And they get scared and they feel shame. And then you can repair this because you walk over and you go, oh, thank you for listening, but it's really hot. Maybe a lot of us didn't get that. We were then told, oh, you stupid, why would you touch that? But let's just pretend we're good parents now. And so the next day, same situation, because, we have to eat every day. So you go and cook, child is there, you go, oh, forgot the onions. You go over, the child wants to reach this for the stove. Shame comes up and it remembers, oh, got in trouble last time I tried this. So we're not trying this again. So shame has a really, really important function for us. It's like from cave times, and it's supposed to protect us from doing something that could harm the tribe or harm us. So it's actually every emotion is valid and it's really good. So what other appropriate feelings could you have? Have you ever had something, you're decluttering and you found it and it was given by your auntie 20 years ago, you don't use it, you probably don't even like it, but you feel guilty to throw it away. So maybe instead of feeling guilty, maybe you feel sad. You have fond memories of her, but she had died. Or it triggers another negative emotion about this. Guilt is shutting us down. Guilt and shame are shutting us down, and we are not exploring them. This is an opportunity to explore. What do I actually feel about this person? What memories does it trigger? If we just feel guilty, we're not going to explore this, are we? Right. Are you feeling guilty or responsible? I really I like memes that have so much truth on a very small space. So what responsibility have I forgotten? So different reasons. It's my job. Well, sometimes you're the only one carrying the bucket. There is nobody else to do it. However, we can actually explore this because maybe you made it your job or it got made your job. And like, I remember I was so keen when I got together with my now ex-husband. I would do our washing and the cleaning and blah, blah, blah. My kids would not do the washing for another adult. They're all young adults now, unless it's like mutual. And what started as a job I chose then become a burden. And I didn't want to do it anymore, but no, it was my job. You have no one else. If you're like a single parent or living on your own, then yeah, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And you really feel, I have no choice. Maybe you ask for help and it just wasn't answered with, yeah, sure, I do this for you. And can we just acknowledge the reality of the situation? But I don't still need to feel guilty. I'm just responsible for it. And then I can choose, yeah, the washing is done, but actually I still have some t-shirts and it doesn't need to be done right now because I'm really burnt out or whatever. And that's different, isn't it? I can choose, do I take responsibility right now in this moment for it? Or do I just feel guilty? And then the inner critic goes, oh, you're just so lazy. Like, yeah. I learned a few years ago the difference between nice and being kind. And I didn't know that. I thought, well, I want to be a kind person. I think kindness is important, it's one of my core values. So of course I'm being nice. Turns out it's not the same. So when you're nice, you are really worried about letting the other person down. When you're kind, you're being emotionally honest. So an example is your friend calls and says, oh, I want to go to the cinema. I loved going to the cinema 20 years ago. I don't like it anymore. It's too loud. It's too bright. Nah. If I tell them, oh, you know what, I'm really busy, or oh, yeah, sorry, I've got a headache, they're going to ask me again next week. If I tell them, you know what, I really enjoyed 20 years ago, you should have asked me then. I don't like it, but I love spending time with you. How about we going for a coffee or we going for a walk? And they say, sure, I just asked so-and-so to go with me. You're being kind because you're being kind to yourself. If you say yes to them, you're saying no to yourself. You're letting yourself down. And sometimes, to be honest, I think people sometimes ask you for something. And then when you say, like, do you want to go to this party? And you go, no, I'd rather go to bed early. And they go, oh, thank God, I didn't want to go either. So actually, being emotionally honest, you do someone a favor, you never know. Yeah, the nice person says yes, even if they want to say no. The kind person says yes to themselves first. It's okay to say no to another person. I wonder, and I would like to hear your thoughts or just encourage you to explore that. Where is that thought even coming from? I say, no, I'm letting you down. I'm just being asked for something. So I haven't got the answer for that yet, but puts others' needs first when you're nice. Practice inclusive caring. So it's not, I don't care about you anymore because I start looking after myself. I include myself in the care of others. And that person, the nice person, would have weak boundaries, and the one with kind has strong boundaries. And the difference between them is one is fear-based and one is love-based. And when I learned about these things, the difference between nice and kind, that was quite a shock, to be honest. Right. Have you ever been on an aeroplane? I'm sure you probably all have. I've gone on holiday. And you know these yellow masks and the person doing the funny movements? Some people pay attention, other people are sort of like, yeah, right. You won't believe. So I've been working for 4 years as a mental health support worker. And one of the projects was working with unemployed parents. No matter who I ask, imagine you're on an aeroplane with your kids. Who's getting that mask first when it comes down? They all said the kids first. I'm like, great. So you're fainting and your 4-year-old is now responsible to put all the mask on the rest of the family. And they were shocked. And they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Because their natural instinct was, I need to care for my child first, or for whoever else, maybe elderly parents, friends, whoever. I have to put myself last. When you see it that way, and then you're like, I'm putting a lot of responsibility on other people because I'm refusing to help myself first, it starts to become a completely different point of view. And that's what you have to do first, because if you do not look after yourself, who else is going to do it then? So, can we just look at the golden middle? And I think what's behind it is the fear of becoming the other extreme. So I have an example of a selfish person who's my dad, but he's also a very kind and selfless person. So it might be contradicting, but sometimes people have different personality depending who they deal with. And I was always worried that, well, if I think about myself, I will become like him. And I didn't want that. And I didn't understand that what I understand now, I can have strong boundaries. I'm making sure I look after my energy. I make sure I can help you, but so I don't harm myself. I didn't turn into my dad. That was a relief. Right, now we come to this. You probably heard you can't pour from an empty cup. Well, I say your cup is never empty. It is either filled with joy and love and energy, or with resentment and anger and overwhelm. And the result is that you might have a really short fuse. So maybe someone even tells you have anger issues. You need to do anger management. Really? So I know, because of my training and my experience, that anger is not anger. I might be hungry. I forget to eat. Or I might be sleep deprived. Or someone is actually taking advantage of me. Well, I shouldn't eat in that moment, should I? So we eat our feelings away sometimes. But if I know why I'm short and grumpy, it's okay. I can say to my kids sometimes, oh, I'm in a lot of pain today. I'm just grumpy. Don't talk to me right now. And they don't take that personal. They're just like, yeah, it's okay. Maybe I need some rest. Maybe I need some food. Or maybe I need to tell the person, well, that wasn't okay. So it's really important to explore, why do I feel grumpy and angry and short? And yeah, don't eat your feelings away, and fill your cup with good and positive things. So I think language is really important. So how do you talk to yourself? I talked really horrible to myself in the past. I would not talk to anybody like this, but learned behavior. How could you be so stupid? Have you ever you had a conversation with someone and you either said something or you didn't say something, and then you go round and round and round and you think about that and you can't stop, and these are the questions. How can you be so stupid? Stop being so lazy. Oh, all the chronically ill people I work with, I say, if you would be lazy, you would enjoy doing nothing. They don't enjoy doing nothing. They are paralyzed, either with ADHD, parallelism, you can't decide what to do first, or they're so exhausted and their brain is still going and feeling guilty. If we would enjoy doing nothing, but we don't. That was my favorite one. It sounds worse in German. I don't connect to this emotionally in English, but yeah, I taught myself that a lot. And when you do this, there is no space for self-love, unfortunately. So the question now is, how can we reframe being selfish? Because the point is, we feel guilty because we think self-care is being selfish. So is it? I now say, the more energy I have, the more people I can help. The better friend I am, the better mum I am. Or we can call it self-love. And that's really difficult for people, self-loving. And it's possible. someone called it ethical self-care. I like that, because ethical means for us, we're not just like exploiting someone or the earth. I really like that. I'm practicing ethical self-care. Imagine. Sounds so different, isn't it? In the resources, there is a book called Conquer Your Critical Inner Voice. And there's a really good exercise. I really like that. And you just take a piece of paper, put a line through the middle, and on the left side, you put your inner critical voice, and on the right side, you true self. And like I mentioned a bit, the marshmallow man, or you want to give them a name or have another image, you put what the inner critical voice is saying on the left side. And on the right side is your response, but you really like thought about, is that really true? So they might say, oh, you should have offered your help. And on the left side, so you don't say, oh, I should have offered my help. No, you should have offered your help. And on the right side, you can say, yeah, but there were 3 other people you could have helped. And I did a lot already. So the exercise is just to start arguing with that voice instead of feeling shame and guilt that shuts us down. With like, is that really true? Should I really have done that? Am I really that lazy? Am I really a loser? And I have another example why this doesn't make sense. So imagine you're a taxi driver. So your service is to take people to hospital, to make sure they go on time to the airport so they don't miss their holidays. And you and your taxi are the self. If you don't look after the taxi, if you don't, oh, I'm just ignoring this red light and I can hear this noise and the tank is nearly empty. And then you drive up, well, you go down the road and your car breaks down. Well, they're missing their holiday, they're missing their doctor's appointment. So why would you not, as a taxi driver, the most important part here is, apart from making sure I'm healthy enough to drive, is the taxi. And that's a symbol for us. So why would I want to have a taxi that smells bad and has got rubbish in there and it's making noises and it's not a good ride? It's like, we wouldn't do this. We would not book that taxi again. We're just like, you're not serious here. And so we need to become serious with ourselves. And, I try to make it a bit lighthearted, but I tell you, the price I paid for feeling guilty and not practicing self-care is not fun, actually. Right. So the question is, if something is true, it should resonate with us. I would like to encourage you, if you want to do this now, just fold your arms. And you fold your arms in a certain way. And now fold them the other way. When I did that the first time, I was like, well, where do they go? Because, when it's colder, so you just go automatically. And then you have to do it the other way. So why does it feel so wrong? Because our brain is not used to it. It goes the easiest way. So imagine you have a shed in the garden and there's a pathway with stones maybe, and you just walk up and down there. One day you decide, oh, this is a bit long-winded or long-winded. I just go across. And it's difficult. You go like, oh, all this grass, you're going through if you haven't cut it. And the more often you go forwards and backwards, one day there is just dirt. There is no grass anymore. And this is how we build our neural pathways, isn't it? The more often we do this, if you would just keep folding your arms the other way, you wouldn't really feel a difference. I thought, I don't know again where this is coming from, well, if it feels wrong, oh, that must be my gut feeling warning me. Now, sometimes it could be your gut feeling, and it's good to listen to it. But it might also be that you were never allowed to say no. You were punished for saying no. So now that feels dangerous. Oh, remember, 1990 something, we said no, and this happened, so we better not say no to people anymore. So it can feel really weird and uncomfortable in the beginning. So let's talk about general examples of self-care. And if you have any idea that you do something you do already and you want to share, then please put that in the chat as well. So I thought first it was a hot bath and chocolate when I started. But you know what happens? You're in the bath and then you think, oh, I haven't done the washing up, and then I have to do this. And it's like, and before you know, your water is cold and you haven't relaxed. You were still working. Sharing the mental load. The mental load, you might not know what that means. I'm in this really great group, Bridging the Gap, on Facebook, and women complain a lot that they have the brunt of the mental load. That means you remember all the appointments, you arrange all the appointments. Even if people have a dog together, you're responsible for the vet appointment. So it's everything you have to keep in your mind to keep running your life and maybe the life for another person or children. And you can share that. Even like I said in the beginning, I was so keen, I was happy to do all this, although we were both working full time. And then things change. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to say no. You can just say, you know what, I've done this now for 2 years. It's your dog as well. Let's share the mental load. Having strong boundaries. That's self-care. Yeah. Walking in nature. Whatever recharges your battery, fills your cup with good things. Quality time with family and friends. So self-care doesn't always need to be, I'm taking myself off to the bedroom, or I'm coloring in, or it's just something that doesn't feel like work and it's really good for your soul. Journaling. I was surprised that quite a few people in the project I worked didn't know what journaling is. So I just mentioned it. You might all do journaling already, but journaling is just getting all the thoughts you have on a piece of paper. Some call it morning pages. So the first thing they wake up and they write, just write, just write, just write. Sometimes it can be really interesting and exciting, because once you start just getting the big pieces out of your head, a little other nuggets and thoughts are coming that you weren't aware of. Meaningful rest. That's what I meant. Not lying down and then going, oh, and then I have to do this, and I haven't thought of this, and I have to write that. That's not meaningful rest. That's still working. And relaxation, not relaxing. So people think, oh, I just watch Netflix or so. Have you really felt really relaxed after still taxing? So maybe there's a bit to explore. What's the difference between true relaxation and relaxing? And especially people who have like ME, CFS, we talk about heart rest, because you cannot go on your phone and doom scroll. Your body is shutting down so much. You really need to proper relax. But I hope it won't come to this, because you're going to do more self-care now. Don't need to wait till you're as ill as I am. So now I've got a few exercises, and they are also in the resource page. So the 1% rule is very easy to remember. So when I worked with these parents, and they were mostly women, I'm like, so do you do any self-care for yourself? Nah. Could you start maybe with 15 minutes a day? You're crazy. I'm lucky if I can go to the toilet for 5 minutes. So they just couldn't see 15 minutes a day. So I said, 1%. Yeah, okay, it's the smallest amount. Well, it's 14.4%. I calculated it. So it's nearly 15 minutes. But they realized it might not be about the time. It might be about, can I give myself permission for this time, not the length of the time? And that was their main problem. And I had one client who was really lovely. So she was one of the people, I haven't even got 15 minutes, and the kids are not going to bed, and they're driving me potty, and I'm up all day and I can't sleep. So she started with 15 minutes. At the end, we had 8 sessions with participants. She took an hour every night. And she said, you know, it was really weird. The kids started to take them to bed themselves, or go up and then waited for me. And I like, yeah, because you believed that you deserved, this was your time. The problem with rules and boundaries, if I'm not really convinced that this is my right, I'm just gonna throw it out and I hope you will stick to it. There is just something in our energy that changes when I'm saying, do you know what? This is my time. So one woman, for example, I read about that. She put a cap on. So they didn't have much space where they lived. And she trained her family, when I have this cap on, I'm invisible to you. Don't bother me. So even if you say, I haven't got the space for a workspace or my own space, you can create space. And everybody respected that. So because this mum said, and she knew she needed more than 15 minutes, but she really believed, to change my life, to be a better mum, I need this space. The kids picked up on that. And they took themselves to the room, and it's like, and I said to her, if I would have suggested an hour back then, she said, yeah, I would just have laughed at you because I would be crazy. So if you think that you haven't got the time, but your brain can understand, you know what, 1% of the day is for myself. That's the smallest amount we can start with. The in-between exercise. So we have these transition moments, you know, you're in the front room and you think, want a cup of coffee or so, or tea, whatever you like. So you transition from the front room to the kitchen. And very often we do this very mindless. So we just rush ourselves. And it's not only the outer rushing, but it's like an inner rushing and pushing that's not necessary. So I have an idea for you, and you can try that out. Imagine you're a film star. You're on set, all the cameras are on you. So you stand up and you pause and you feel the floor under your feet. And you make sure you go, you know, they don't slum there in the films. They don't go like this. You have a pose. And then you walk with grace to the kitchen and you open the cupboard. You take your favorite cup out. And then you go to the next cupboard. You have your choice of your favorite drink. Put it both down. You take the kettle. You go to the sink. You watch how the water goes into the kettle. You switch it on. Maybe you go to the fridge then. Well, you get the gist. Does this really take so much more time than just rushing and there, and you know? And when you prepare this, then you sit down and you will drink that cup of whatever is your favorite beverage so differently. And your heart rate will go down. Your breathing will be better. Things will change. We cannot wait till we are completely exhausted and worn down. What for? Where are we rushing to? What needs urgently doing now? And if we sprinkle these little bits and pieces throughout the day, you will really feel differently. And in the resources, there's also a free create your own self-care list course. And one of the suggestions is, if you work in an office, you put red dots like stickers around the room, like coffee machine, photocopier. So when you go to the photocopier and you see the red dot, you know, pause, take a breath. It's really simple. And I think we probably, we fail. It's not failure, but we give up, because if you think self-care is 30 minutes exercise every day, that's going to go on the bottom of your list and you will forget about it. So we need to make sure we help ourselves to make it as easy as possible. So another idea is the TADA list, not the to-do list. So another very peculiar, when I say peculiar and I'm like smiling about it, I did it myself, but when you see it, you can't unsee it. So especially moms then told me, I haven't done anything. I'm like, really? So you lay on the sofa all day? The kids looked after them? No, but it's okay. Do a TADA list. So a to-do list never ends. There's always something. That's the evil thing with these buggers, eh? So you do a TADA list. Have a little notebook, or I have a notepad in my phone. Every time you do something, you write it down, and then you can go, ta-da! You don't have to, if there are people and you feel a bit embarrassed, you can go, ta-da! Yeah. So write it down. And I said to them, can you do me a favor? Can you do this for a few days? So the next time I saw them, they were like, oh my God, I do so much. Yeah, I know. I know. So TADA list is really lovely. Do you know what? Asking for help. I remember before I did self-care, so I have a manual wheelchair and an electric one, but back then I used the manual one and I have this leg extension because I need a new knee. Anyway, I was in the kitchen and somehow things have fallen on. Oh my God. I was pulling, I was making a racket, and I was angry with my son for not coming out of his room and offering his help. I'm horrified now thinking about this. Do you know what I would do now? I would go like, that's stuck. Can you help me, please? And I know he would just go like either 1 sec because he's doing something, but eventually he would come and help me. And I wasn't allowed to ask for help as a child. I was like given something to do and then left like an adult. And I was struggling. And I remember I felt hot. I felt shame. I was scared because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. But I knew if I would go and ask for help, my dad would get really angry. So I learned that if you make a racket, then maybe someone will notice. That's a very unhealthy in a very unkind way as well, because my son is not a mind reader. So asking for help is self-care, but it's also very kind. And asking for clarity, oh my God. Do you ever comment on Facebook and then someone goes and accuses you of, and you go like, that's not what I've written. We have so much background information, and it's so easy to be misunderstood and also to misunderstand. So if you think, oh, someone was like short with me or what, just ask them. Ask them. Yeah. And then neurographics art. So there's a YouTube video on the resource page. To teach neurographics, you need to pay a few £1,000s to become a teacher, but there are loads of YouTube videos. And I just love neurographics art because you can just start it. And it's good if you finish it in one setting, but you know, you might not have the time. So the way you do it, you just, with a black pen, you go over the page and you just do swirlies. You can write a question at the back of the page if you want to explore something. And then when the lines cross over, you like round them up and then you just fill them in. But if you explore that a bit, some people put patterns in or words, or sometimes you see something in there, like one of these swirlies, they create a shape or so. It's a really nice, and it's one of my favorite things I share with people. So this is the resource page. So you can either use your phone and then it will take you straight to it. I will go in a minute and show you as well, or you can just go to craftconscious.co.uk/self-care. Let me just stop sharing and then I show you if I do this like this way. No, okay. No, that's not it. Wanted to show you the that's also not it. Do you know, I love when things don't go perfect, because it's still a really good way of testing. Are we, oh, I think, let me go. Are we still free from self-criticism and feeling guilty? So I'm trying to, can you share that page, Julie? Can you, did you
Not quite
click
sure
on...
what you want me to do.
Oh, wait, now I'm gonna, I wanted to explain. Let me just start if that's working for me. All right, yeah, I can share again. Let me just, I wanted to show you around the page because there are courses and different things. So I've got it now. 1 minute, I'm gonna share again. Right. Cool. So when
Yep.
you go there, so these are the books. This was written by my very good friend Vicky Morgan, who's here as well. And these are the ones that the other ones are others I also really suggest reading. Then there are a few free courses. So this is the one. So every link you click on it will take you on there. This is a mini course from this guy, Not Nice. Here, Aziz Gazipur. So that was the one that really hit hard with me, the difference between nice and kind. And he has got this free course. That's a hilarious TED Talk. It's really good. The Wellness Recovery Plan is actually a course. You can also do this yourself. So it's just sitting down, exploring a bit like what triggers me, what is good for me. So you in Leeds, there's the Leeds and York NHS Recovery College. So it might be if you're in the UK there as well, and they offer this as a course, and it's really good. Then this is some information, and then they sell a course as well. And then this is here the neurographics art video, and then a bit explanation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, seriously, you're gifted. This was really amazing. I mean, I've written so many things. It was at the same time extremely wise and deep, and at the same time, you're a bit like, well, it's like, normal. It's like resonates with me. I'd be like, well, why have I never seen it that way before? I thought it was really some fabulous examples, very down to earth, very practical, but where you could really see the difference between the two things. So there were really pearls of wisdom there. So thank you very much. And I do really believe that, self-care is something that we underestimate. Your example of indeed, how can you help anyone else if you are totally depleted or don't have your oxygen on? So it's not selfish, is it? It's survival. It's getting us in our best situation. I would love to invite for questions. Please don't hesitate. Oops, sorry, not to knock everything over. Any questions anybody has on anything, on how it works, on anybody have anything they would like to share? Just feel free to unmute or put your hand up. Dilla. Oh, she's looking forward to the TADA list. Yeah, I thought it was so good. Instead of that to-do list, just even the word, right? You say to-do list, you're a bit like, oh, God. And the ta-da is a bit, I've done it. I mean, even physically, it's fantastic. So yes, I've written that one down. I'm going to do a post on that immediately after this call. I mean, from my point of view as a 57-year-old, I must say I feel that with age, I have very much come to that where I'm extremely selfish about my time, that I know I need it in order to be a nicer person for those around me and in order to do my work. But I'm thinking, if back then with the 3 children, moving country every 3-4 years, I'd had some of these tools, I think I would have felt a lot more proud of the person I was, because I do know I did lose it and say angry things or, complain or whatsoever. So I think these are very, vital actually resources. They should teach us that. They should teach us these things at school. And you know what you were saying about your children and, thinking that we can't ask them. I mean, otherwise, what sort of an example are we giving? How are they going to learn to set boundaries if we just let everybody walk all over us, or whether we of our own accord think we have to be doing all of this?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a really important question. What are you role modeling? Yeah. What if your inner critic is a hypocrite, Iggy, you're inferior imposter, but also you're a show-off? Well, I would question that, because the show-off, isn't that, if I understand you right, saying, well, I'm actually really good at that. And yeah, you probably are really good at that. So I'm not 100% sure what you mean.
Do you mean like false modesty, Heather? Feel free to just open up. It's you don't need to put your video on if you don't want, but tell us a bit more on what you mean. Do you mean like false modesty, that we know we're good, but we're just pretending because we don't want to seem aggressive or arrogant?
Well, you can be criticized for not being good enough and at the same time be criticized for thinking you're better than someone or
I get
self-righteous.
you. Yes, I
Okay,
get what you mean. Yeah.
right.
So they're like giving you two messages at once and they're both wrong.
So I have thought sometimes that I'm actually a very arrogant person because I do know that with over 30 years in self-development and all the training I've done for nearly a decade now, I do believe, yeah, I have more knowledge and I'm better. And sometimes I'm impatient with people who seem to not wanting to put the work in. The funny thing is, it doesn't feel like a criticism. It just feels more than that another voice comes in and say, yeah, be careful that you don't show this arrogance, you know? So what I'm talking mostly about is the inner critic that puts us down, really like self-loathing. So I feel what you just mentioned, that wouldn't really come at self-loathing. So I need to think about it. I will come back to you, Heather, about this. So that needs another thing. And I also found that self-loathing at times felt addictive. So it's almost, I felt good to put myself down, partially because it meant, well, then I can't really expect anything from myself because I'm rubbish. But also the pain of being limited or feeling so low seemed to be taking it a bit off by this poison almost. So yeah, I think that's just a different type of the self-loathing, shaming thing. And I would explore more like, well, where do I actually think I'm proud or better than other people? Because there's nothing wrong in it, you know. Like I put decades and thousands of pounds into my training and developing and overcoming my trauma. And it just feels weird to now say I'm proud of this and like I limit who I let have access to my time and energy. And part of me still feels, yeah, but you shouldn't really. But now I have to because otherwise I burn out even more.
I think it comes back to what you said about being emotionally honest, isn't it? Because you are tuning into, okay, what is this voice really saying and why, what's behind it? As you said, it's not always the first thing. It's what is it that's behind it? So is it a
Yeah.
fear of being judged, or is it, that this, if I go to the example of, a hypocrite, between the showing off, and I guess it all means how we express all of this as well, right? We're not putting somebody else down to make ourselves look higher. We're just sort of saying, well, this is what I've learned from my studies. This is what works for me and for many of my clients. I'm putting it out here as an example of something that I could share with you after 30 years of experience, but we're not ramming it down their throat either, are we?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say like, unfortunately, my brother is someone who is in his story of how sad his life is. And I try to help him. And he's, we are maybe too close or I don't know. And he's not interested in any of the tools that I share with people. For example, I teach trauma tapping technique. That's really effective when you have like anxiety and panic attacks. So I taught this to him, and a week later, I'm like, "So how is it going? And have you tried this?" And I haven't tried it. And it's like before, I would have felt guilty, and I would have, yeah, I show you again, and I would have tried to rescue him. That's not being kind either. I would have done that to make myself feel better, and now I'm just like, that's it. Try to help you.
Yeah,
And
and it's just accepting that we can't change other people, right? We can
yeah,
offer things knowing, with honesty that they are worthy. We have found them worthy, but if somebody else doesn't find them, then again, it's not letting that inner critic come back and say, you see, you're rubbish, you see, you're an imposter, you see, you shouldn't have done it. No, we know our
no,
stuff. And Heather, are we going along the lines of what you meant?
Well, I think it came, I was triggered to think maybe it is that this, if other people are trying to put you down, you can't actually get it right. So say,
Yeah.
like I have a very critical mother and sister. Um, so you can't get it right. You'd always be either not good enough or you're being self-righteous or showing off. So you can't actually win. And it's just knowing in yourself that you are justified and you are
Exactly.
okay as you
Yeah.
are, and you've just got some critical people around you. But they do say that,
Exactly.
like, before you think you're insane or whatever the nasty word you want to use for yourself is, just check you're not surrounded by horrible people first.
It's true though, right? That's very true
Yeah.
what you've just said. And it's all that idea that, what it's in a way it's their problem, right? And it probably reflects a problem that they have if they're saying such nasty stuff. There might be envy there might be, all sorts of other things. So it's just keeping that self-care and self-love, as you were calling it, Teresa, intact, so that we know we're doing the best. That doesn't mean being complacent either. Every day is an occasion to learn something, to grow, to learn also in compassion, in humility, but not going over our own boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's just loving ourselves enough that we know what we need and how we need it. And then being there for other people, but not letting them over the line, just choosing to walk away, just choosing to let it, slide off your back as if it was, rain, and to not take it to heart, because it's only when we start believing that they might have a grain of truth that then it hurts.
It's an opportunity to heal the things that you might not have been aware of. So that's why everybody's our teacher as well. Yeah, I saw that. How would
See
you
the other one? Yeah.
How would you suggest to handle things when one is overwhelmed and feeling burnt out, but asking for help just does not cut it? So that's where it's so important to get a handle on the inner critic, because in that moment when we have this blanket sheet of I need to do everything, and then we ask for help, and we have to sort of retrain the people around us, because they might then say, oh, you're being selfish, or when we change, oh, you've changed, as if that was a bad thing. So can you imagine you have a machine and it starts smoking and getting hot? You wouldn't put the I try even harder and run it faster button. You would switch it off. So I would really scale down on the minimum you can do for yourself and the people you're responsible. And that is if you have children or your pets or elderly parents or anybody else, you do the minimum, because I think the mistake like people often say, oh, I can't sit down before I haven't done the washing up. Really? No, physically, you can sit down and not do the washing up. So I need food, I need a certain minimum standard of personal and hygiene that surrounds me. I do not need to have it perfect, but the perfect is the pressure from I will be judged if I don't do it. I feel guilty if I don't do it. And then I would sit down and really think, what is the person that's not helping me bringing to the table? And that might be a very hard talk with yourself.
Yeah, and it's related, oh gosh, I can't remember the word anymore. Putting things into perspective, right? What would happen if you don't do the washing up?
That's what TADA just said as well. I would just saying now and see what happens.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, because we also create this feeling of self-importance sometimes. Okay, I'm that bit older, but now looking back on the fact that I was running this entire household, 5 of us moving around the world and all this, but I wasn't actually letting my now ex-husband play any part, because he did it a lot slower or not as good as me. So in a way, I created that myself, that burnout. Oh, right. We could talk for so much longer. I see we're already...
Just one last, because that's so important what you just said. When we are at the moment where we can, it's not victim blaming, but when I can take responsibility, how I created that situation, exactly with my ex-husband. I was so eager to please him, and then I didn't know how to stop. That was my responsibility, not my fault. I'm not, but that was my responsibility. And there's a brilliant film from Gabor Mate, The Wisdom of Trauma. And he says, and that's typical my mum, if they need me, they will love me. And it's this, I do this for you. And then she tries to make you feel guilty and gaslights you because I did this for you. No, you owe me this. And that's also not self-love or loving others. The kids don't do the washing up because they're still in
Well, then
court.
just let it be bad for once. They'll decide to do it better when they have stuck pieces of spaghetti in their breakfast bowl.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm afraid we need to stop off now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Teresa. This was extremely valuable. What I do want to say as well is also, please do not forget what I said at the beginning. For any of you feeling any overwhelm whatsoever, there is that wonderful link today to Dawn and Teresa. We're really looking forward to talking with people around a cup of tea, so do not hesitate. This was fantastic. Join us again in 1 hour for Paula Madden on From Worry to Wellbeing, and then we will have our last session at 7:30 UK tonight with Graham Nichols. Teresa, thank you very much for sharing this wisdom. I hope we can share that message loud and bright, no, broad, whatever I'm trying to say right now. Thank you for all being here. You're wonderful beings.
Thank you for
and
coming.
Let's indeed prioritize our self-care. All the best to you all.
Take
Teresa,
care.
you're a star. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.